Welcome to the Rise Above Project. I'm your host, Joe Perroni. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, champion bodybuilder, and I've been a personal trainer for about 30 years. This podcast is about helping people with their emotional, spiritual, and physical fitness. I value strength, toughness, and truth. I despise complacency, the victim mentality, and following the herd. If you find my work to be valuable, please subscribe to my channel and tell a friend.
The title for today's show is Kobe Bryant, Why We Mourn Celebrities. As everyone knows, Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash on January 26, 2020. It's difficult to be unaware of the news due to 24-hour-a-day newscasts and social media. I've had some people contact me who wanted to talk to me about this subject, and they wanted to know what my point of view was. And I'm honored by this because people feel comfortable with me. They realize that I respect others' opinions and I'm not judgmental. And they can also expect an opinion that is not formulated by the matrix and doesn't go along with the herd mentality. My parents did not raise a follower, and if I see things differently, I have no problem expressing my opinion. As I was trying to get my thoughts together for this show, I heard another news story about this tragedy. And again, the report was Kobe Bryant dies in a helicopter crash, and it also claimed the life of his 13-year-old daughter, and there were 7 others. Now, what stands out to me is the flippant, dismissive use of the words 7 others. Because I can't wait for the day when our society does not define the worth of human beings by materialistic values, such as finances and fame, and start elevating people based on their adherence to virtues, values, and morals. Do you think I'm asking too much? Make no mistake, this is definitely a tragedy, but there are multiple tragedies. Almost all of the attention is being given to a former professional basketball player and his daughter. But there are 7 other people and their families that are affected by the incident. The other tragedy is that we live in a superficial society where people are considered to be more important just because they have more fame and fortune. Death and grief do not discriminate. Almost everyone has or has had a hero in their life, but that person is probably not famous enough to have their picture on the walls of people who never knew them. And it doesn't make them any less. In fact, doing the right things at the right time while being relatively anonymous may be even more praiseworthy. I doubt my mother ever received public praise for her parenting skills. Yet, as a single mother, she worked multiple jobs and was still able to be present, and she was also a loving mom for me and my sister. No doubt that Kobe Bryant was a great basketball player, but he was not the most important person in that helicopter. While in flight, that distinction goes to the pilot. Although Kobe was an all-star, his shooting percentage was 44%, and his three-point scoring average or percentage was 33%, meaning that he had the leeway to fail more often than he succeeded, and he was able to keep trying. That same leeway is not afforded to the pilot. If the pilot fails, there is death and destruction. And the same can be said for thousands, if not millions, of other workers who have tremendous responsibility in taking care of the lives of others. In the last month, the Pentagon reports 2 American soldiers were killed in Afghanistan. And although Trump claims that there were no injuries after the Iran missile attack, there were actually 60 soldiers who were diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries. And I think that's something that needs more media attention. And no, I don't fault the media for reporting the news about Kobe Bryant, but they should have a broader perspective of the world. In terms of responsibility, basketball is fairly low in the hierarchy. I've seen a few people express the thought that the death of Kobe Bryant and his daughter did not affect them as sports fans, but it did hurt them as a parent and as a human being. And I wish that were true. Because if this were true, we as a country would have much more empathy and compassion for everyone, not just celebrities. Very few people are mentioning the other families affected by this tragedy. If it truly affected people as parents and as human beings, the other victims would have been mentioned more often. In addition, I don't see anyone mentioning or having an honest conversation about the 40,000 traffic fatalities per year, the 47,000 suicides per year, the 11,000 homicides by gun per year. And the CDC reports that there were 80,000 flu related deaths in 2018. If the average person did care more about children and humanity, then our laws would reflect that, but they do not. At the present time, the United States, out of 25 industrialized nations, ranks 45th in infant mortality rates. And we are the only industrialized nation that does not have government mandated paid leave for parents. And I live about 15 minutes away from a brand new football stadium built for the Raiders team. The stadium cost $1.8 billion to build. And yet the state, Nevada, where I'm from, does not have any money to improve our educational system, which is ranked 47th in the country. The classes are overcrowded, and all the teachers that I know spend their own money for supplies. Although the United States is the richest country in the world, I think it's pretty obvious that we don't have our priorities in order. If we do care about children and humanity, then it's time to put our money where our mouth is. Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson says that, and I'm quoting, "Our emotions depend more, they respond more to spectacle than data," unquote. And I agree with that 100%. The fact that barely anyone remembers when Mother Teresa died just because Princess Diana died the same week is more evidence that his words are true. And that being said, there are very logical reasons why it is a common experience to feel very strong emotions when a public figure dies. Modern Western society is largely a culture that denies aging and death. People who are in grief understand that most of society treats grief as something to be minimized or distracted from instead of experienced and felt. This is because those who have departed and those who grieve for the departed are a symbol and reminder of everyone's mortality. Superficial societies naturally shun those who grieve because they have been socialized to create distance between the difficult emotions of others and themselves. This creates a group of people who are dissociated from the feelings and emotions of grief, bereavement, and death. It is beyond many people's consciousness to have the awareness that time is the most precious commodity on earth. It can't be earned back after it is lost. Marcus Aurelius, in his book Meditations, said it was a good practice to meditate on one's mortality on a daily basis. In one of his meditations, he said, "Don't despair from the awareness of death. It can be an enlivening force of moral solidity in the face of our short existence." Unquote. Although there is nothing more natural than death, most people choose to be willfully ignorant. Grief is a very lonely process. It's difficult to properly cope with grief and dying in a country where people are expected to move on immediately after a death, and expressing natural feelings and emotions makes others very uncomfortable. When society collectively grieves over a person they have never personally knew, it actually serves a purpose. It allows them to grieve at a safe distance. If I wore a Kobe Bryant jersey, most people would be appreciative and feel a sense of connection with me. However, when asked, I do reveal that the four-leaf clover I wear on my gold chain is a remembrance of my mother, and it does contain her ashes. Typically, that's too much information for most people. It takes a very emotionally strong person to not give me the sense that they are uncomfortable and that they had wished that they never asked me at all. It's interesting that the social fabric of this country allows for me to express feelings about a person who doesn't know my name, but I have to be very mindful of making others feel uncomfortable for expressing any emotions I might have about my own personal losses. Having distance and no personal connection to a celebrity allows people to fully project all of their fears and insecurities onto another person and situation instead of doing their own grief work. As stated earlier, in Western societies, grief is usually a very lonely journey. However, the death of a celebrity allows people to finally grieve in a socially accepted way with the full support of society. This outpouring of grief is not just for the current tragedy. It is the expression of a society that is fraught with unresolved grief and trauma issues. From an existential point of view, the average person feels invisible in a world with 7.5 billion people. Almost everyone needs and desires a witness to their life, to give their life more meaning, purpose, and connection. In a world that is becoming increasingly individualistic and distant, society can temporarily be brought back together through sports and entertainment. Cultural icons allow people to feel connected to something bigger than themselves through common world views, values, and geographical locations. It also allows people to feel closer to greatness. The other day, I was wearing a San Francisco 49ers jersey, and a few people congratulated me for the 49ers making the Super Bowl. And I definitely do appreciate people being nice to me. But the truth is that my only contribution to the 49ers making the Super Bowl this year is to watch the games on TV and to wear the 49er colors. I have sat in the stands and rooted for them a few times in my life, and I even attended Super Bowl 29 when the 49ers beat the Chargers. And I can definitely say that it's fun to be with thousands of like-minded individuals at the same time. Many times, athletic events can temporarily bring families close together. My father was an old school Italian man who had difficulty expressing his emotions. However, my father and I didn't seem to have any difficulty expressing emotions when watching Lawrence Taylor of the New York Giants sack quarterbacks. And my father, who never cries, did cry when NASCAR driver Dale Earnhardt died after hitting the wall in the Daytona 500 in the year 2001. All of my sports heroes connect me to different moments of my life and to different people. Many of the people I have connected to through sports or music are not alive anymore. In 2019, I went back to New York to see The Who at Madison Square Garden. And it was a full circle experience for me because my parents took my sister and I to see The Who on a rainy night in 1979 at Madison Square Garden. It was my first concert, and of course, I will never forget it. At 14 years old, I still had this fantasy that my parents would get back together. And that never happened, but we were together for the Who concert. And as I walked back to Madison Square Garden to see The Who 40 years later, it was raining again, of course. But by this time, both of my parents have passed. But I definitely felt their presence, and I can thank The Who for that. Speaking for myself, I can say that certain celebrities connect us to our families and our youth. Cultural icons who do achieve greatness in sports and entertainment can be good role models and an inspiration to many people. And for this, I do believe that they are worthy of our gratitude and respect. However, I do wish people would have more gratitude and respect for the people that are physically and emotionally in their life on a daily basis. Charles Bukowski said, "We are all going to die, and that alone should make us love each other, but it doesn't. We are terrorized and flattened by trivialities, and we are eaten up by nothing." Unquote. This underscores that a childish, death denying culture is at risk of creating drama out of frivolous things and overlooking life and death issues. When a society turns its back on reality and significant issues, it makes individuals strangers to themselves and their environment. It also creates more emotional distance between human beings. The definition of psychosis is a mental disorder in which thoughts and emotions are so impaired that contact is lost with external reality. Thus, it can be said that Western culture is suffering from mass psychosis. Most people have become too emotionally weak to live a fully functioning conscious life. Thus, a need to connect with others in pseudo relationships through sports and entertainment becomes increasingly pronounced and popular. In conclusion, I believe that there are many valid reasons to be connected to celebrities we don't know and to experience grief when they are gone. I would like to see public tragedies serve as a gateway to allow people to experience and explore personal trauma and grief issues in a healthy way, and have society be compassionate and supportive in that journey. Our society would be much healthier if people weren't made to feel marginalized and shame for going through the natural process of grief. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I am Joseph Perroni from the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.